The boarding area was its usual blend of chaos and exhaustion, rolling suitcases tripping ankles, children crying because their lollipops hit the floor, and adults pretending to be patient while glaring at the boarding gate like it had personally wronged them. I was on my way home after a week of business meetings and hotel breakfasts that all tasted like plastic eggs. All I wanted was peace, a window seat, and a nap behind my noise-canceling headphones. When my group number was finally called, I shuffled forward with everyone else, clutching my backpack and my most precious travel item, a bright teal, llama-shaped neck pillow. I never traveled without it. That pillow had survived delays, cancellations, and one terrifying turbulence episode over the Atlantic. It was soft, ridiculous, and oddly comforting, like hugging a stuffed toy you'd never admit you still owned. I found my seat, 23A, window, perfect. I tucked my bag under the seat, inflated my llama pillow, and settled in with a satisfied sigh. The middle and aisle seats were still empty. For a brief, glorious moment, I dared to dream that I might have the row to myself. That's when I heard her. "Excuse me, young man, that's my seat," a sharp voice declared behind me. I looked up. She was exactly who you'd imagine when you hear the name Karen. Shoulder, length platinum hair, designer sunglasses indoors, a pink hoodie bedazzled with the words, "Live, Laugh, Love," and a carry-on bag so enormous it probably had its own zip code. She gestured impatiently. "Move your stuff so I can sit." "Sure," I said politely, scooting my things over as she squeezed past me, muttering about how cramped economy class is these days. The flight attendant was helping another passenger find overhead bin space, and Karen immediately started talking loudly, like she was hosting a podcast everyone had subscribed to against them. "Well, they really should make these aisles wider. I pay good money for flights, you know. You'd think airlines would have some decency." I smiled weakly and turned up my music. Noise canceling can only do so much. As we waited for takeoff, Karen kept sighing dramatically. She complained about the delay, the air conditioning, the people boarding too slowly, and the fact that the man in front of her dared to recline his seat before takeoff. Every few seconds, she'd huff, as if the universe had once again failed to meet her expectations. I was seconds away from pretending to be asleep when I felt a poke on my arm. "Excuse me," she said. "Can you hand me your pillow?" I turned, confused. "Sorry, that neck pillow," she repeated, pointing at the llama wrapped comfortably around my neck. "I forgot mine at home, and I can't possibly get through this flight without one. Be a gentleman and let me use it." I blinked, waiting for the punchline. None came. "I need it too," I said, trying not to laugh. She frowned like I'd just told her I kicked puppies for fun. "You don't need it. You're young. I have chronic neck pain." I was 27, not 17, and had spent most of the week hunched over a laptop in uncomfortable chairs. My neck was definitely not in the best shape either. "I'm sorry," I repeated, polite but firm. "It's my pillow. I really prefer to use it myself." Her eyes narrowed. Unbelievable. She pressed the call button. A few moments later, the flight attendant arrived, a woman in her 30s, with the patience of a saint. "How can I help you, ma'am?" "This passenger," Karen announced loudly, jabbing a manicured finger in my direction, "is refusing to share airline property." The attendant blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. What property?" "That pillow," Karen exclaimed. "Isn't it one of those things you hand out to passengers?" The attendant smiled kindly. "No, ma'am, that's his personal item." Karen looked scandalized. "Personal? That's absurd. You can't just bring your own pillows. It's unsanitary. Tell him to give it to me. I need it more." I couldn't help but let out a short, incredulous laugh. "It's literally mine," I said. "I bought it." The attendant was trying hard not to roll her eyes. "Ma'am, passengers are allowed to bring their own travel accessories. If you'd like, I can offer you a small blanket instead." Karen gasped as if someone had suggested she sit in the luggage hold. "A blanket?" Do I look like I want to nap like a homeless person?" The attendant's professionalism held strong. "I'm sorry, ma'am, that's all I can offer." Karen muttered something under her breath about rude service and entitled youth, while the attendant excused herself. I turned my music back up and tried to zone out, pretending not to notice her glaring daggers at me. 15 minutes into the flight, she started sighing again. Each exhale was like a performance, long and pointed, making sure I knew she was suffering. I stayed calm, eyes closed. I thought she'd eventually drop it. I was wrong. Out of nowhere, I felt a sudden tug. My neck snapped forward, and when I looked down, my pillow was gone. Karen had yanked it right off my neck. "What the?" I started. She adjusted the pillow around her own neck and leaned back smugly. Finally, she said, "Some comfort." For a few seconds, I was too stunned to speak. "Who does that? Give it back," I said quietly, trying not to make a scene. She waved me off. "It's just a pillow. You'll live." I pressed the call button again. The same attendant arrived, eyebrows lifting slightly when she saw Karen now wearing my teal llama pillow like a trophy. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "she took my neck pillow without permission." Karen scoffed. "Oh, stop exaggerating. He offered it, and now he's changing his story because he's embarrassed." The attendant looked between us. "Is that true, sir?" I shook my head. "Absolutely not. She pulled it off my neck while I was sitting here." The attendant's lips tightened. "Ma'am, you cannot take another passenger's belongings. Please return the pillow." Karen rolled her eyes. "Fine, I'll give it back when we land. I'm not going to fight about something so small." "That won't be necessary," the attendant said, her voice now firm. "You need to return it now." Karen crossed her arms, turning toward the window. "This is harassment. I'll be filing a complaint." The attendant sighed softly, leaned down, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it worked. With a theatrical groan, Karen snatched the pillow off her neck and shoved it into my lap. "Happy," she hissed. I smiled pleasantly, ecstatic. The attendant gave me an apologetic look before walking away. Karen muttered under her breath for the next 20 minutes, alternating between calling me selfish and immature. I pretended not to hear a word. Eventually, I leaned back, slipped the pillow around my neck again, and closed my eyes. The engine hum drowned her out, and I drifted into a light sleep, though I kept one hand on the llama, just in case she decided to try her luck again. At that moment, I didn't know that her tantrum wasn't over, not by a long shot, but I had no idea it would end with her getting permanently banned from the airline. That part I'd soon enjoy immensely. ChatGPT said. When the plane finally touched down, a ripple of relief went through the cabin. The familiar screech of rubber on runway filled the air, followed by the captain's cheerful voice announcing our arrival. Passengers clapped because apparently that's still a thing, and everyone immediately stood up, as if standing would somehow make the doors open faster. Karen, of course, was first. She leapt up the instant the seatbelt sign dinged off, snatching her oversized tote from the overhead bin and nearly taking out a man's head in the process. "Watch it," he grumbled. "Maybe you should duck next time." She snapped back. I stayed seated as always, letting the chaos unfold in front of me. The aisle was jammed with impatient travelers who thought shoving would make the line move faster. I tucked my neck pillow into my backpack. This time, no way was I letting her near it again, and waited. Karen was directly ahead of me, practically vibrating with the need to be first out the door. When we finally began shuffling forward, she looked over her shoulder and gave me the kind of smirk villains wear right before they monologue. "Still mad about the pillow?" she asked sweetly, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Not at all," I said evenly. "Glad you enjoyed it for the few minutes you had it." Her lips tightened. "Well, maybe next time you'll learn to share. You people have no manners. You people." Classic. I gave her a small smile, the kind that said I wasn't angry, which for her was worse. Then I took out my phone. While we'd been taxiing to the gate, I'd noticed something interesting on the airline's app. A new feature, Report Incident, Passenger Misconduct. It was meant for things like harassment, safety issues, and yes, theft or verbal abuse. And since Karen had gone full performance art over a neck pillow, I figured she'd earned a little documentation. I opened the app and started typing as we stood in line. Passenger in seat 23, B verbally harassed staff and another passenger. Attempted to take personal property mid-flight. Refused to comply with crew instructions. I added a quick note. Footage available. Ask attendant Grace. I'd caught her name from the badge earlier. Karen was too busy yelling at someone ahead who hadn't moved fast enough to notice. Some of us have connections, she barked. Then you should have booked a shorter layover. The man replied flatly. By the time we reached the exit, Karen stormed off, muttering about incompetence and never flying this garbage airline again. I followed at a normal pace, enjoying the freedom of solid ground and the knowledge that, for once, karma might actually keep up with her. Inside the terminal, I spotted the same flight attendant, Grace, standing by the gate counter. She looked tired but still managed a professional smile as she saw me approach. "Hey," I said quietly, "thanks again for handling that situation earlier." Grace smiled faintly. "Oh, her, I've had worse, but she's definitely memorable. I just filed an incident report." I told her, "In case the airline asks, feel free to confirm what happened. I don't want her making up stories." Grace nodded, eyes brightening. "Actually, that helps a lot. I already noted her behavior in our log. She yelled at another crew member during landing prep because her phone charger wouldn't fit the outlet. Of course she did." "She's in for a talk with customer relations then," Grace added. "They take these things seriously now, especially with in-flight cameras." I raised an eyebrow. "Cameras?" she nodded. "They've been adding small ones above each section, mainly for safety and accountability. They're reviewed when passengers file complaints." That was all I needed to hear. I thanked her and headed toward baggage claim, pulling out my phone again to upload a note to the report. Footage likely available from cabin camera row 23. By the time I reached the carousel, I'd almost forgotten about Karen. I just wanted to grab my suitcase, call a cab, and go home. But the universe wasn't done with me, or her, because there she was again. Karen stood by the carousel, tapping her foot furiously, berating an airline representative who clearly wished he was anywhere else. "I demand to speak to your supervisor," she was saying. "Your staff humiliated me. That flight attendant was completely unprofessional, and that man," she pointed, locking eyes with me, "assaulted me over a pillow." The rep turned to look at me, confusion flickering across his face. I stayed calm, even smiled. "Assaulted? That's an interesting way to describe having my property stolen." Karen gasped as if I'd cursed her bloodline. "Stolen? You offered it." The rep's expression darkened slightly. "Ma'am, if this is about an item of property, I can check the flight log. The crew usually makes notes when there's a passenger dispute." Karen crossed her arms. "Go ahead. I'll have you all fired when my lawyer hears about this. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to." The rep made a quick call, spoke in low tones, then looked back at us. "Ma'am, can you please step aside while I verify something?" Karen looked offended at the very suggestion. "Excuse me, no, I'm not the one who should be stepping aside." But two uniformed airport security officers appeared from behind her, summoned quietly by the rep. Her eyes went wide. "What is this? Why are they here?" "Ma'am," one of the officers said politely, "we've been informed of a passenger misconduct report filed against you, corroborated by the flight crew. We need to speak with you privately." Karen turned to me furious. You did this." I shrugged. "You kind of did it to yourself." She started protesting loudly, dramatically, arms waving. But the officers stayed calm, guiding her away from the baggage carousel. Her voice echoed down the terminal. "This is outrageous. I will sue. You can't treat me like this." A few passengers who'd been on our flight watched in quiet satisfaction. One man even clapped softly. The airline rep walked back over, shaking his head. "Thank you for being patient, sir. That passenger has been reported multiple times before. This was the last straw." "Multiple times?" I repeated. He nodded. "Yep. She's caused disturbances on 2 other flights this year. We're placing her on a no-fly list for our airline and a partner review for regional carriers. She won't be traveling with us again." I let out a slow breath. "Well," I said, "I hope she enjoys road trips." He chuckled. "We'll also note your cooperation." "You handled it well. Appreciate that," I said, slinging my backpack over my shoulder as my suitcase came rolling down the belt. "Just glad it's sorted out." As I walked toward the exit, I felt the weight of exhaustion settle into something much lighter: satisfaction. Not the gloating kind, just the quiet relief of justice done. I stopped at a coffee stand near the exit, ordered a latte, and when the barista handed me the cup, I pulled out my llama pillow and looped it back around my neck. The fabric was freshly cleaned. One of the attendants must have sent it through a quick sanitization before deplaning. It smelled faintly of citrus, disinfectant, and victory. As I walked toward the taxi stand, sipping my coffee, I passed one of the big digital screens showing airline policy updates. A banner read, "Disruptive passenger policy strengthened, respect crew and fellow travelers." I smiled at the irony. Somewhere Karen was probably still yelling at security, convinced she was victim, but I knew better. Sometimes you don't need to shout. You just need to stay calm, document everything, and let Karma and the airline's customer relations team do the rest. I tightened the llama around my neck, stepped into the cool evening air, and thought, not without a little grin, next time I fly, I hope the only turbulence I meet is in the sky.